Sorry.
Do I am I doing this?
What?
This is PSA.
Of course. Why
I'm a guest
not?
today.
You still a host?
This is PSA Philly Service Announcement.
This
Take
guy.
over Tuesday. Take over love, support, grace,
It's always
social
love.
activism, resources, and art. I am the
and
assist.
art.
That's my sis right there, right hand
It's your
sister,
girl, Raw Can and Nick. What's up, y'all?
the queen. Don't leave that part out.
Yes, the queen.
So we listen. Now, I ain't doing nothing else after this.
Listen,
You know
this
what I'm
guy
saying?
he really is going to milk this. But this is the special part for the day.
Mhm.
We have a special guest.
Yes.
And our special guest is no one other than my brother Rue, the
Thank you.
assist.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
everybody. Don't hold the applause. Hold the applause until after the show.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
we
saying?
know he gonna give us an earful. But we also have another special
Yes.
guest. We have a young
The real
lady.
special guest.
She's another special guest.
Mhm.
They both are special guests.
Mhm.
So she's another special guest who is going to be conducting an interview of my brother Rue, the assist, on criminal justice reform and his involvement.
Yes.
Now we don't never introduce people. We let them introduce themselves. Now she's a little shy. Well, go on ahead and introduce yourself, dear.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tasia, and I'm interviewing Rue for my social justice religion class. I'm a high school student, I'm a junior, and the topic is criminal justice reform.
So what school?
Mary and Mercy Academy.
That's a private school?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It is
Swanky.
a all girls
Swanky.
private high school.
Yes.
Yes.
Listen, man.
So listen.
I love your mom and them. You love them? Because for real, you go to private school, girl.
Yes, she does. And
Yes,
she
sir.
had I had a chance to take a look at and review some of the questions.
Mhm.
And boy, oh boy.
Y'all know
I
I love
know
it.
my brother Rue is going to give her an
You know I love it.
earful.
You know I
So
love it.
I don't know. I hope you don't plan on taking notes because you could just watch the show over
Yes.
and over and
Yes.
over and over and over again and get our views up.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I'll do before she goes. I do want to thank everybody for the views last week. You know
They were
that show must have been really important to folks. It was important to me.
Yes.
It was important to me. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because Suhana is autistic and is autism awareness, autism acceptance month. Because that's what Michelle and Khalil, like you say, Superman, like Khalil, like
Yes.
that. So, really dope people. And then all the brothers, young brothers, and the coach from Savage Not Average, coming up here and expressing what was going on with their team and one of the young men passing away. And that's really big because he didn't. It's really big because of how they coalesce around him. Even your little brothers that didn't really know him like that, but it was like we team, we family. But then there was another little brother in here. I thought he was a player. He actually was a coach. He's 20, and he was like alumni to the program. And I thought that was real dope. Even though he's not unique, they make you think like young brothers like him don't exist.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because he
Right.
is only 20. And then those other little brothers coming from all of these different places, and I'm like, yo, it's family. So I appreciate everybody for showing us that they dug the show.
That
I appreciate
show
that.
was amazing.
Thank you. But
I'm
it was them. It wasn't me.
It was definitely them and you, but it just like you said, it's autism acceptance, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to bring more awareness and attention to that. And I think last week's show just really hit it off
Yeah.
and resonated with a lot of people. And that's where we came with why we got the reviews that we got. And it just shows that y'all want the resources. That's
Yeah.
why we're here.
And I was getting them in real time because Michelle she does she's a sleep therapist advocate at CHOP. I hope I ain't butchering it up, but I know she deals with sleep issues with mainly children who are autistic. And Suhana is going through that right now, where like she's gonna have to get her like some of the tissue from her tonsils and her
The
adenoids
tonsils.
shaved down because they were saying her tonsils are a little bit enlarged. She has sleep apnea. If you are a parent or you anybody and you watch somebody with sleep apnea sleep, it's painful and it looks like
It's scary.
it's scary.
It
Yes,
looks like
it's scary.
they're stopping
Yes.
breathing.
And they had to assure us at the doctor's office, like, she's not going to die in her sleep. You know, she's going to keep, but her not getting sleep is like she be all over the place a little bit. Like, it's sometimes when she just be like kind of irrational, like because it takes a little bit of time for her to regulate anyway because she's autistic and she has a lot of sensory needs. But it's like when you work with your children regardless, and you'll see the progress.
Yes,
like
you will.
whatever they saying the malady is or whatever, I'm not sitting here as somebody that's in denial or and even when parents are in denial, it's as for people outside that's seeing that's a natural reaction. Don't come down on those parents. Don't look at those. Like, still try in a very sensitive, caring way to provide the information, make it aware, make them aware. But don't. That's just a natural reaction. Frustration, anger. Why is my child like this? Being distant from your child for a while. These are things that other people have to come in and help support.
Right.
The parents is like me and my daughter mom, we go through a lot, and I know it be because of what's going on with my daughter. And she might not know how to feel or what to express that she's feeling, or she may feel people are thinking certain things about her, that me included. She, just because I handle things differently, she thinks I think differently of her when she's frustrated, when she's angry, when she like, look, I'm burnt out, I need some, stuff that super moms are not supposed to feel. Because that's being a super mom is a fake John. It's a badge. Don't try to carry that badge.
It's so
don't
fake.
do it.
It's
Don't
so
do it.
fake.
It's going to have you in the corner somewhere crying, trying to understand what is going on with you as a parent. Because you're putting too much on yourself. Right. This is not a one-person thing. This is not a mom thing. This is not a dad thing. This is not a mom and dad thing. This is anybody in our community who cares, who has some information, some compassion, and feel like they can help. It's one of those type of things. Absolutely. And autism is not the only thing. I don't care if your child doesn't have autism. We should be moving in that way with children. I like to say lately, like, it takes two and a possible. Mom can't do it by herself. Dad can't do it by himself. Mom and dad can't do it by themselves, and we're not supposed to. We're not really supposed to raise our children we're supposed to be primary.
Takes a village. It definitely
as parents, we're supposed to be primary, but we're not supposed to do it by ourselves. So when parents feel like they don't want to be around their children and things like that, don't vilify them. And don't feel bad when you feel like that, because you're more than just mom. You're more than just dad. You're multiple things. And all of that is going to come into play when you're dealing with whatever difficulties you're dealing with it as a part of parenting.
Right.
So all of those feelings and reactions are natural. So I say it again, like, I was getting help in real time because with Suhana going through that and her saying, listen, it's nothing off. It's something off, but it's coming from her not getting enough sleep. Yes, she's going to sleep at night, but she's not getting good sleep. And an adult would be moody.
Anybody.
Right.
Anybody. Sleep deprivation
Yes.
will have an effect on everybody's productivity.
Yes.
Period. No matter what your age is. So it's, and that's, see, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's the way we supposed to be with our, like, it helps you, it gives you a more common effect and an understanding of how we should generally, as a whole, approach and engage with and communicate with our children, people, period, honestly. So, I like the fact that you said that that's the way we should, because it really does, making you more aware kind of really humbles you in a way that you're, some arrogance or some ignorance will have you thinking that, it's my way or the highway, or
right.
The way I did this was, and my parents did it this way, ain't nothing wrong with me. But in all actuality, life is about changing. Like, exactly. Change is we have to embrace doing things different, because isn't that insanity?
Yes.
Doing the same things
and expecting
over
a different
and over and
result.
over and over again, and expecting different results. I got 5 kids, and I done tried to do it 5 different ways, and they all 5 of them need 5 different ways of parenting, And I thought this the first one. You see,
Mm-hmm.
y'all didn't get that. This is my firstborn right
Mm-hmm.
here. So she came out just like, whoo, she made me think parenting was sweet.
Right.
And I thought just because, things wasn't the way with her, with my younger ones, that it was something wrong with me.
Right.
Like, what
Like,
did
what am
I
I
do
doing wrong this
wrong? What am
time?
I doing wrong this time?
No, that's a
But
different person.
yeah, it is a different person.
And then that's gonna be the beauty of that, I think. Like, because when I be talking to my mom sometime and I tell her things, and we talked about this before, like you tell your parents like stuff that you remember, stuff that you heard, what your perception of it was, and then they add to the story, and it's like, I think parents, a lot of parents enjoy it. They don't enjoy everything because my mom was like, "You seen that? You heard that? Yeah." Yeah, I did. So what was going on? And then she would tell me the whole story, and it would be like something would be like a cringe thing, like But I'm like, Mom, at the time, like I think me and my mom really, really started talking about like serious things, like when I was probably like 30, as far as me putting the pieces together, like my uncle coming and him and my mom was going through something, right? And she kept telling me like, "Nah, get out my house. I'm not doing that. Get out of here." This, that, and the third. And my uncle got so mad. We had just went then did laundry, and he shot like 3 holes into the laundry, into the floor. I'm standing at the top of the steps, and my mom didn't flinch. She just was like, "Jarue," because I'm named after my uncle. Like, "Jarue, get out of my house." And I guess even with the, this is not really funny, but even with the gun in his hand, he must have knew, like, because he called my mom Ra. Her name is Rashima. And he was like, he must have knew Ra wasn't playing at that moment. And he ran out the house. Seriously, he ran out the house. So I'm like, for a lot of years, I probably was like 5, 6, and I remember that clearly. And I remember when I asked her about it, and she kept it real with me. She was like, "Your uncle used to sell coke, like sell powder, but he started fucking around with us. Excuse my language. But he used to always ask my mom to hold his work. And he came to get the work, and she knew he was gonna mess it up. And then, from dealing with him, my mom knew what was next. Like, if you mess this up, then I know how you gonna get. Like, you gonna go on offense when really you mess somebody money up. But you gonna go on offense.
Right.
So her thing was like, you ain't gonna do nothing to me. And that's the reason why you gave it to me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, because he started getting high on his own supply. And that's how I went down. But I never knew that. I never knew that my uncle sold powder. I never knew that my mom was holding the powder for him. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that. I just know he snapped out that day. And I'm like, man, that nigga shot holes in the floor. And my mom, when I tell you this woman ain't flinch, and was like, "Get out of my house." And he ran out the crib with the gun. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But that was one of them stories I always wanted to know, like, what happened. And she told me. So it'd be like, when you get to that point, and I think she getting old enough to start like filling in blanks and asking certain questions like that. So that, to me, I don't know. I'm just one of them curious people like that. And we think so much. It's like, what was so when she put the pieces to the story, and then she kept putting pieces together, and then you start thinking about other times when I was with my uncle without my mom. So now I understand certain parts about those stories. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's why he was. Oh, that's why Boy was with him, and you know what I mean. So, but she's gonna get in that, and she looks like she's.
I mean, since he's talking about his history and some things that he remember as a child,
we can segue right on there.
Without further ado, let's get into Miss Young Tasia and the questions, the interview of my brother,
the assist.
It's
like, no.
Mr. Jarue.
She like, well, y'all shut up.
I know, right? Well, you shut up.
Okay.
So there's 3 other girls in my group, and we came up with some questions kind of in chronological order.
Before you start, really quickly, Tasia, can you kind of explain to him what the project is and what everybody else in the group is contributing to the project, so he can understand where his role is at?
Okay, so this is my praxis project for my social justice leadership class, and it's based off of our book titled See, Judge, Act, and it's basically Catholic beliefs about social justice topics, because my school is Catholic. So the See, Judge, Act book is about a process. The first is see, the second is judge, and the third is act. So first you note where you see social justice in our current world and history, get an understanding of it, and kind of educate yourself on it. And then when you judge it, you see, like, does this coincide with Catholic beliefs? Like, what can Catholic people do to help this? And also, what are some other non religious ways that this is bad or this is affecting people in really negative ways? And then the judge part is we actually go out and, not the judge part, the act part, we actually go out and do something that relates to our project, whether that be like volunteer work or starting a fund that supports people who have been affected by it. So my the big topic for my project is racism, and the subtopic is criminal justice reform. So we already did research on racism itself and also criminal justice reform, specifically in the United States. And we also looked a little closer in social justice reform in Philadelphia itself. So my group already kind of has an understanding of how black men specifically are often like done wrong by the in court before trial, how a lot of men, they are in prison for years before they even get to trial, and then what prison itself is like during the time, like how a lot people are there for really long time that they don't even have to serve most of the time. They're just given these long sentences because they're black men. And then also how difficult it is to re-enter society after you've been to prison, especially if you've been to prison for a very long time. So our questions are kind of in that order. So life before prison, during it, and then how, like, what you've done after it.
Okay.
So our first question is, we want to know a little bit more about your childhood and how do you think the way you were raised or how you've grown up kind of connects to your journey, like how during prison did you see a lot of connections with your childhood, and even after it did you see like you kind of witnessed some of these things already before you were even going through it yourself?
So before prison, it's kind of like that story. That's a story that stands out. So before prison though, like I was loved, like love, and that's something not to go too far ahead. When I got to prison, I noticed that a lot of my brothers were devoid of that. Like they talked about not having a father, and that's one of the precursors. Like again, not getting too far, but so many guys don't have fathers and father figures that Father's Day cards don't mean anything in prison. But Mother's Day cards, you could trade them for food. You could trade them for more cards. So me, like my dad was kind of in and out until I was 12, and then my pop passed away. So I really never had a man in my life, but I had like I don't want to say strong black women. I had very diverse black women in my life that gave me a lot of love. And, I had an aunt who she was into politics and she graduated from college, and come to find out she wasn't really my aunt. She was my mom's best friend. And she actually wasn't my mom's best friend. It was my older aunt's best friend. But then my mom and her got really cool, and then she loved us. And then she just treated us like she was our blood aunt. And my mom had a lot of friends like that. So I had a lot of women that are around a lot who they just love Jarue. You know what I'm saying? So I never come from that point of not being loved. Now, as far as missing my dad, it wasn't so much a missing of like love, but it was just more instruction. So I didn't realize he was missed until I became a teenager. And when I talked to other men who were incarcerated, it was never a time because he just was never there. And mom, whether she worked all the time, she was strung out on something, she mental illness, something that we realize now. I didn't when I was in prison. It was like, yo, your mom was shot out, stuff like people say stuff like that. But then now we have this language to know that a certain amount of our moms were mentally ill, and they didn't know, and so they couldn't love their children the way they wanted to. So that's like a unique thing for me because I wasn't void of love. Even the men around me, mainly my peers, they had wild love and respect for me. Like we was real close. I'm still close with just about all my childhood friends at some level. Like, it's not no beef there. It's not no thing where it's something we hold in. We just kind of either deal with each other or we just know each other, but it's nothing. We can see each other and be around each other on the block or whatever, and it'd be cool right now. So that's another thing that was unique for me versus when I met a lot of my brothers in prison. They came from all they homies is like shady. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and they become accustomed to that. Like, they think it's okay. It's like, yeah, I just can't trust so and so around this, but that's still my man. You know what I mean? So I seen where our camaraderie and stuff like that was skewed. Where before I came to prison, I didn't know that from men. What I knew, where I went wrong before prison is just, what is it to become a man? Like, what is being a father? I know I always knew that because I always wanted to be a father. I always wanted to be a husband, but that wasn't something that was promoted amongst the men as making you manly. So that's not something I really talked about with my friends, that I wanted a child. You know what I'm saying? That I wanted to be in a relationship. And it's funny because those things came from the women I were around, because I love these women so much. I seen every aspect of their relationships. So I didn't want to be like them dudes. Not that I never made any mistakes or did any of the things that these men wind up doing to my moms, my sisters, my aunts. But I was a little bit ahead of the curve when it came to male-female relations, because I knew I didn't want to be like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that part, because even that's another thing, fast forward, and when I get to prison, it wasn't unique for men to have very skewed views and perspectives and feelings towards women. You know what I'm saying? Because some of their moms taught them that. Some of their moms taught them that directly. Like saying, you can't trust these issues out here. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't. I don't come from that. The women in my family never talk like that about women. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't. That's not something. So me pre-prison, I probably shouldn't have been in prison. You know what I'm saying? Because I was an honor student. My mom took reading important. The reason why that's important is because most of the men that I met in prison didn't go past the 8th grade. That's another one of those precursors that why they was there. You know what I mean? So I was an honor student. I went to college. I didn't get locked up until I was 20. I was on my own. You know, I had left home at 17. I started college, graduated high school at 17. I started college at 17. So I was already 3 years on my own. I had worked real jobs since I was 9. When I was 9 years old, I worked on both corner stores on my block. You know what I mean? And that was something that I got from my mom, because my mom worked hard every day. All these women that I'm telling you about, they worked hard every day. That's something I seen. And then my grandfather was kind of like a role model from afar, because he wasn't in my life every day, but he had a 2nd grade education, wound up living uptown, where all our people who started getting money moved to. He had a really nice house, tree-lined block, 2nd grade education, taught himself auto body, and he was able to employ himself. So at that point, like, the Uncle Ruth thing in me really comes from my grandfather, because it was never a time where you seen him was like, Pop, you got $1. We ain't call him Pop, but you know, Grandpa, you got $1. And he always had money in his pocket. So that's one thing that I learned from afar. As a man, you always gotta have money in your pocket. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have something in there when the children come, and sometimes when the women come, you gotta have something in your pocket. And that was one of those things that I learned from a distance, because I didn't get that every day from my grandfather, because it's my grandfather. He's so much older. You know, you're born, your grandparents are old already. You know what I'm saying? So it was the reason why I'm telling it to you like this, because my story is not like so many of my brothers' stories and how they got to prison. What I feel like in the end led me to prison is the fact that crack was a thing. When I just so happened when I was a teenager, crack was the thing. Crack was either being used or sold everywhere, all over the city.
Yeah.
One of the things you see about dope is in certain places. Crack was literally everywhere. In Mount Airy, down the bottom. It was in Winfield. It was down Strawberry Mansion. It was down 7th Street. It was up 15th and Dickinson. Crack was everywhere. It was in the suburbs. It was in Norristown. It was in all of these places. So us coming from, because we was poor, definitely. And that's another thing that I'll say, the love that I got from all of these people, I didn't realize we was poor until I was like 10, 11, until we actually moved from North Philly. Like I look back on it, and it's like, damn, we was broke. We was hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we was poor. But my mom took such good care of me, and my older sister, who was the second mom to me, and she was the one, not played the dad role, but it was like, you can't be no chump. It's all right for you to cry, but you can't be no chump. It's all right. It's all right for you to have emotions, but you ain't gonna sit here and whine.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's okay for you to go through these things, but you ain't, mommy, dee, like you ain't gonna do all that. Now, if you going through it, okay, go through it, but you ain't gonna turn 5 minutes of emotions into 2 hours of whining. Because I was the youngest. That's another thing. You know what I mean? So, but my sister gave me a lot of that, I guess, manly toughness, even though she's not a manly woman by no stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? But it was just like, nah, you ain't moving like that. You know what I mean? So a lot of my rumble you until the sun go down and all that came from my sister. You know what I'm saying? But when I got in the streets and crack, I'm gonna say, although I know that I was a very intelligent young man and I was ahead of the curve, and the people in my community championed that about me. I didn't get the you're acting white. Me being smart was a real thing in my neighborhood. It was respected in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Me going to college was something that was celebrated in my neighborhood. They didn't have a plan for me.
Right.
My folks ain't have a plan for me when I went to college, but they were happy. Everybody was rooting. They was applauding. So on one end, I just think my folks lacked information to tell me that next thing, like, yo, you got to do this, like giving you a detailed plan. Like your mom is going to be able to give you a detailed plan about college because she been through it. My mom hadn't been through it, so she couldn't she just was happy. My baby going to college, you know what I mean? But she didn't know what to tell me. So I struggled with that when I got there. And then people always, the reason why I said, your parents love you, because you're going to get a really high quality education, and then you got parents that can explain it to you. Like all the information that you taking in right now, that's going to have you ahead of other kids your age, because it is. Your parents are going to be able to break that information down for you. So you got some kids that's not getting the information at all. So most of my friends were like that. School wasn't really something that was pushed. They didn't read that. We're not saying that my friends, all of my friends just about graduated from high school, got GEDs. Even some of my friends, shout out to my man Boo, he went back to school on his own when we was young. He went to youth build. I always tell people the story because I respected the hell. We was all living in the crib by ourselves, teenagers. And he went back to school, and he got up every morning and went to school till he got his diploma. And he a hard-working man. Like, it shows now that he been doing the same occupation for 40 years, damn, 30 years. So now I see, that school thing, that was this playing out as an adult. So my John is very unusual in that way, where a lot of the precursors that my brothers had that would lead you to prison, that lets the school know you're going to prison, because this is not by happenstance, and I'll get to that, the life after prison. So I was loved. I was an honor student. I played sports. I worked. I had a bank account.
So on paper, you would think that, all of the things that you were involved in and all of the things that you were doing positive, that there's no way that you should have ended up on a road to prison.
Right. And definitely not during the amount of time that I did.
And definitely not during the amount of time that you did. And with a lot of people who come up in the same neighborhoods who didn't have some of the things that you did have, the love. You know what I mean? Somebody who supported you, somebody who encouraged you. A lot of young men, black men in particular, that grow up in the same neighborhoods, Bab. Just your example is proof that very different households,
right?
Very different family structures and family environments. Even though you right next door to me, right across the street from me, we're in the same neighborhood, dealing with the same oppression.
And that's important, because for me, like my story is more like, this is what, like, they put this in our neighborhood. They put crack in our neighborhood because they knew people were susceptible to it, because of the things that they were already going through because of poverty. They wanted a way out. Like, some people wanted to make money because they was being closed off from the system. So they sold drugs. A lot of these younger men, myself included, because we couldn't get jobs. You know what I mean? Young boys, 13, 14, 15, they parent or their parent is on drugs. How you take care of yourself? Crack. And now the roles in the house reverse. So that's something that I seen in prison too, where I seen a lot of people who were able to lead because the roles reversed in their house, and that's just what they matured into at a very young age. So when they move with other people that were our age, that's how they moved, because they take care of their home, selling crack. So I was one of the people that I feel crack was intended for,
Mm.
because the rest of these folks, we already did enough to them. You know what I'm saying? That they're gonna fall victim. But you, and I do believe when they tell you that you smart in school, it's a good labeling and it's a bad labeling. Because folks that want to keep you in this
You a
position,
target.
it makes you a target, because they like, oh, he knows. And I could, and going into when I got sentenced, that's what the judge said. I had all of these mitigating circumstances. So mitigating circumstances are supposed to, there is stuff that's outside of the evidence of the case that can lighten your sentence. So if you were working, if you did have family support, if you were an honor student or was in school or you did stuff in the community, those things could be said at your sentencing and it would lessen your blow. But all of those things for me was used against me. I had 10 plus people in the courtroom, family and friends. I had folks coming from, I was in placement at one time. Some of the people from placement came and spoke for me. Family member friends spoke for me. I had awards, trophies, all of this stuff, poetry stuff that I wrote, geography bowls that I was like, we was bringing up everything. And the judge said, the person that they're talking about right here now is not the person who committed. I'm like, damn, I'm the same boy. I'm sitting right here. You know what I'm saying? It was supposed to help. And if somebody, somebody white, or maybe even lighter, because they play the colorism game with us as well, wouldn't have been treated that way. But I guess he looked at it like, you big, you black, you intelligent, you a problem. So you need to sit. We got to take a lot of your productive years away from you, because that's another thing that jail is built to do. So me going to prison, it was like nobody expected that. And I was embarrassed when I first got locked up. I was telling my mom and them not to tell. For the first year that I was incarcerated, my mom and them, they held it. They didn't tell anybody that didn't already know. People was, and my mom and my sisters would come up like, yo, we tired of lying to people, yo. But I was embarrassed because that wasn't my trajectory. But I know for a fact that me trying to find out what manhood really was and having to do that amongst my peers instead of with men, crack in so many levels made violence okay. It made disrespect of your elders okay because of that role reversal I'm saying, where you got 14, 15, 16-year-old men making money that their parents would be making. And everybody didn't make money. Don't get caught up in that story, but it was money everywhere. Yeah. The basics could definitely be taken care of. So me trying to still figure that out. What is a man? What is a man? And what wound up happening is, from being in that culture, carrying a gun was regular to me. You know what I mean? Being out and in dangerous places trying to prove my manhood, like going to neighborhoods that wasn't my neighborhood, strapped, being in a bar, having a good time, that was manly. Even though it was dangerous and you could die from it, it was really stupid. But that's the things that I were told that makes you a man. Being violent. Trying to get all the women. This is what makes you a man. So you trying to make money and impress them and buy her stuff and all that. That's what we were told makes you a man. And you putting yourself further on the line, trying to impress, trying to do, and then you won't wind up getting locked up, or it's gonna be some envy or some jealousy, people shooting at each other, we beefing, everybody ultra tough because they got guns and they got some money, and everybody want to talk crazy. So it was just crack was the second worst thing that happened to black people since slavery. Right. When you really look at the numbers, when you look at the effects, when people been saying a lot now, it's called crack on purpose. So for me, that's how I ended up in jail. Crack was put in our community, and it skewed how I looked at things, because I was searching for something that I was supposed to get. I was supposed to be going through a rites of passage, and my rites of passage wound up being selling drugs.
It got interrupted.
And that whole culture that comes with that. Yeah. So shooting was regular to me. You know what I mean? So I caught a shooting. I shot another black man, put him in a wheelchair in Montgomery County, Pottstown, selling drugs out there. That's the reason why I even went into that town with another friend of mine. And, everything had turned out how it turned out. And then we in this town, and it's all white. And their whole thing is, we gonna make an example out of y'all niggas. And the judge literally told me that. He ain't called me a nigga, but I know what he meant. Because it's a thing, like, and you got white folks in the city who think that, like, they're different from white folks in the suburbs and all that. But they treat you the same. You can look at the numbers. So, so now I'm going through this court system that I don't know nothing about. Now I'm intelligent enough to kind of like follow along and know that things are being done wrong, like the public defender who's overworked, underpaid. But then that becomes some ES after a while when you start really understanding how they get paid and all that. What the public defender really is, he offering everybody up. His job really is to offer. Not every public defender. I know somebody probably gonna like, nah, I be fighting for people.
But what I want to, okay, so you shared a lot, and you know we got to slow Brother Rue down sometimes. So, Tasia, your question, your first question, and I know he probably answered a lot more of your questions with all the information that he gave you. Do you feel that you got the answer that you were looking for
pre-prison
in that question for pre-prison?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I want you to look over your next couple of questions and kind of see if he answered them without being asked a question. Because we want to make sure we cover like trial, prison, and then reentry.
Got you.
So I want to make sure that, you know, you ask the questions that you need to ask, but he's giving you so much information that you might get answers without having to ask.
Because the next stage I am at.
Yeah, because you in prison now.
No.
You're going through the trial.
I can
right
explain
now.
the trial.
Yeah, you're going through the trial right now.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm asking Tasia, like, what do you think would be the most important thing for you to know next, based on the questions you had?
I think next it would be most important if you go into detail about your trial.
Okay.
Even like before your trial, like from the time between being arrested and actually going to trial.
Okay.
And how you saw those things wrong. Like what were those things that you were able to follow that you knew were wrong?
So the first thing that I learned is, you know, I got locked up around like 8 months after. I was on a run for about 8 months. And what I noticed is capitalism has a way to turn us on each other. So if I know for a fact that somebody in my neighborhood called the cops, because it was a $10,000 reward on me because it was a violent crime, you know, armed and dangerous, all of that. So I'm sure, and I don't, you know, put this out there a lot because it don't really matter to me. I'm not actively searching to find out who it is. None of that. I don't even think about it, but I know for a fact that somebody, because one of the things you learn about investigations is as the months go, it thins out. They not giving the money that they would give the first week, the first month, for that manpower, that overtime to look for. And and it was black on black, and that means something when they talking about spending money. If Becky is murdered, it's going to be a lot more money and manpower spent over time to find her murderer or her assailant or her attacker than two black men. It's not going to be the same. It's not even going to be the same energy. So even if somebody can come say, well, the money is the same, but I know human nature as pertains to racism. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
As it pertains to how cops look at us. So it's kind of like, yo, they did it to each other. He hit, he's out the game. Now he's locked up, he out the game. So
you were on the run, and they put a reward out.
Yes,
for you?
almost instantly they put a reward out for that type of
And how much
crime.
was the reward?
I think it was like 10,000.
So they put a reward out for 10,000, and you believe wholeheartedly that somebody from your neighborhood called the cops.
Yes, because I'm from a poor neighborhood.
Right. Okay.
And you can justify 10,000 by saying he did do it though. You know what I'm saying? You can make yourself. He ain't gonna know that I told, and he did do it though.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you know how I know that? Because somebody that loved me said that to my mom. Now I know my aunt didn't call, but she was like, how you let him, basically kind of like how you let him go on a run, and he did this. Like, and my mom like, I'm not sending my son to prison.
Right.
I don't know everything that happened, so I'm not gonna sit here and I'm gonna protect mine. And that's really what her thought process was. And she started calling folks, and I was going. You know what I'm saying?
So after they put out the reward, somebody called. They came.
They came and locked me up. It's funny because they had a 15-year-old picture of me. Like not 15.
And you were
at
how
15,
old
I was 19.
You were 19 when they arrested
but
you.
This is a mugshot from 15.
The mugshot was from you were 15.
So the
years
ball.
old.
So when I first got locked up, this was the feeling. the brothers that locked me up, that was state trooper boys, was like kind of like, you embarrassing us. You embarrassed us. Like the boy just kept saying, man, you supposed to be somewhere playing football, man. Like you sitting in here. And I just was looking at him like, bro, I don't hear nothing you talking about right now. But thinking back on it, I understood, because black people move. Some black people move like that. That's
Right.
a result of racism. There's some black people that believe we're doing what we're supposed to do, and other black people are making it hard for us. That's a result of racism. That's a skewed mindset, because the system is the system. It's creating what it's creating. You're gonna be in that space regardless as a black person.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to you don't want to fight back so much, so you blame yourself, your own people. Like, if white people wouldn't do this to us as black people. No, white people created this situation that you're saying is embarrassing to you. They created that so your people could have that outcome. You know what I mean? So that was the thing from a lot of the black troopers or whatever. They wasn't physical with me. They didn't act crazy with me. It was mainly black boys that locked me up. And another thing that I understand about that is it's the job of buffer. They allow us to get in certain jobs to be buffers. So we're police to keep that conflict. I learned that with cops. I learned that with state troopers. I learned that with COs. You put people, because who actually grow up and say, I want to be a CO? Nobody.
Right.
But it's a job because they limit the amount of jobs that we can get. And they got a pension and all that good stuff. And it's like, it's a good job until you get there and see what you actually got to do. You involving yourself in the slave trade. So I start seeing certain things from like the white cops, because I knew racism exists, but I never really dealt with racism like in my face. Like,
right.
You know, up until I knew it exists from down South Philly. You walk by certain gates, the dogs only bark at black people. You know, certain parts of the city, your mom could tell you like you couldn't go when there was going to be a fight, and adult white people fight young kids. Mm-hmm. It's just a real thing. I'm just being honest.
Right, they do.
You know what I mean? Anybody who lived near K&A, lived there anywhere around 7th Street or around Italian folks, it's different parts all over the city where it's a borderline between black people and white people, and we fought.
Right.
You had to, if you ever went through those neighborhoods, they tried to jump you. They tried to hurt you. They tried to do something to you. Mm-hmm. That's a reality of this city that people act like don't exist, but it does.
Right.
So I knew racism exists, but I had never dealt with it in my face. Like people doing stuff to me in my face through the system, or just if they can get away with it because I'm black, saying certain things to me because I'm black, like stereotypical stuff and all that. Gay jokes about being a big black guy. Like, oh, people gonna be scared of you. I know it. That I ain't Bubba, bro. Ain't nothing gay about me. I don't want to do nothing to no man. But this is the things they would say because I'm big and I'm black. I wasn't bald yet, but that added to it once I lost my hair. So
so what were some of the other things that you noticed that was wrong during pre-trial before you went to trial?
The first thing that I noticed, and this wasn't my situation because I shot somebody. So normally when you have like an intent murder stuff like that, you either don't get a bail or you get a ridiculous bail. You know what I'm saying? That you're not gonna be able to pay because they know you poor. But what I started noticing once I went to the county was people wasn't getting bail for like retail thefts and all that. They was making people sit for months at a time for taking stuff out of the convenience store. But I would see pedophiles, and I'm being serious, white pedophiles in these prisons getting 11 to 23 months. They wouldn't send them upstate, you know, but you sending a dude upstate for a burglary. You got the option to not send him upstate. It's his first time. He a teenager. Mm-hmm. You could give him county life with it. It's like 59 months because you're doing it for pedophiles. And most of these pedophiles are white. You can look up the statistics in Montgomery County at that time and see.
So explain to her what's the difference between being in the county and going upstate as far as time is concerned.
So the county is where you go when you're going through trial if you can't make bail. Most of us can't make bail because they give us astronomical bails that don't compare to the crime that you committed. Where a lot of crimes where people should probably get out R on R. And we would read in the newspaper affluent white folks or just regular white folks going home for more serious things like drunk drive, like DUIs where they hit people and they giving these people bail. But like I said, you have a guy in here who's on drugs, that's clear, retail theft, no bail. Or you giving him $1,000 bail when you know he's not going to be able to make it. Mm-hmm. And you see and in Montgomery County, you can clearly see the disparities because it's predominantly white.
Right.
Whereas though if you down CFCF, they can sneak it a little bit more because it's mainly black people down there. So we can do stuff that you not paying attention to because it's happening to all of y'all. It's nobody to compare it to. But being in Montgomery County, I would see the bell thing was like the first thing that I noticed. Then I seen how the visits would play. Little stuff like my mom would have to stick strictly to 2 hours. But I would see white boys going out on visits and it's 2.5 hours. And it's behind the glass, but it's little stuff that you start noticing. Then the cat starts saying stuff, but it's plausible deniability in that. Like, oh, we lost track of time, stuff like that. Like you can write a grievance, but you ain't going to win it.
Yeah.
Because he gave him an extra half an hour. I wasn't looking at the clock for a minute. You ain't, how much of a fight you going to put there? But if you doing that over time, like that messes with people. That's like low intensity warfare. It messes with you because you need that connection. You know what I mean? Like it would be stuff like the way they would search your cell. You would see them search white boy's cell, and it's not as extensive as my cell is being searched. You taking 20 minutes in his cell, but you in mine for an hour and 20 minutes. You know, and that's more of that plausible deniability stuff because it could be like, well, they ain't really have nothing in his cell, but Lawson had a cage and then. Come on, man. We know we had the same thing. Right. Y'all had to look at every so it would be like little stuff where extra toilet paper would be given out or extra sheets would be given out. And the black folks, unless we was tap dancing or telling, you know what I'm saying, unless we were giving up our manhood to them in any way, then you would get them. But if you just was not talking or you was pensive every day, like trying to think of how you gonna get out of there, they would take that as disrespect. If you wasn't like Joe with them, you know, talk like you gotta be laughing and joking with them. And I'm like, why I gotta do all this for you to just do your job? Yes, because they enjoy it. They enjoy that. They want you to
entertain them.
Right, entertain me while I'm here.
Yeah,
entertain me while I'm here. So being down in county, it was. I'm not going to say it was more blatant down the county, but it was easier for me to see because the county is smaller than being upstate. Like we all like in a room and it's all the cells is in, it's 100 cells or 50 cells. I don't remember how many, but we all in a room. So I could see what you doing. And upstate, once you get convicted and go upstate, it's more spread out. So it's like they could be doing certain stuff, but you still could see it. You still could see it.
What about legal representation pre-trial while you're down the county? Like, did you see a despairingly difference between how lawyers came and visited with the white inmates as opposed to
definitely
black
one of the things about bail was my grandmother and my grandfather was willing to give their house for me to get bailed,
right?
Which I had seen with people who wasn't in the county. But what they told me is, no, you too much of a flight risk because you from Philadelphia and you in Montgomery County. But it's guys in here. Now, I can't even argue that. I see dudes coming back, and the lawyer telling me, you can't really argue that. This is a bail hearing. I'm like, what? Like, why would you? I got two. But the thing was, my grandparents wasn't supposed to own no homes. Exactly. This is not a normal thing for them. When we come up here, you don't have no houses for collateral, but I had two.
Right.
And they was willing. Because the judge even was like, you sure? And my grandma was like, yeah, I'm sure. This is my grandson. I know him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm sure. But they like, you sure? Because he might go, like, why you trying to convince my folks? You know what I'm saying?
Not to look out for me.
And the reason why, again, because, you know, I'm Chris Rock with it. I'm always looking for the racism. And it's very easy to find. So the other thing about that was you thinking that you have a position that my grandma would acquiesce because so many black folk before who have that feeling about white folks where it's like, don't rile these white folks up. That don't treat that judge like that. You gotta respect these white. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's something that comes from racism too, because we've been pushed and prodded and poked and pulled so much that it's just like, leave them alone, y'all. We just gonna go along and get along. So he thought my grandma was one of those. And she wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And even that, I seen that play out. Like, he really was talking to her like he knew her and she was supposed to listen to him. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you don't talk to the lawyer like this. You're not talking to nobody else in this courtroom like this. So I understood, because most of our people, because of the way the system is set up, they are intimidated when they come in this room because they know white folks got the power. And white folks expect that. So when my grandmama's like, no, like, I ain't worrying about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He kind of like, no, you, and she like, no, like, But he just, once she wasn't going for it, he was like, no, I'm not giving you no bail. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I should raise your bail, you know? Because you got the other prosecutor coming in trying to raise it. My joint 150. He like, no, his bail should really be $250,000. Seriously?
Like, it's just another way. You know,
Right. And I
we
know
don't
it's a
have
serious crime. I get it. But
Yeah,
but the thing that has to be remembered about all this, and I left it out, y'all didn't see me do this. I
is
am
still
innocent.
prior to
Yes,
being
I'm
guilty.
innocent until proven
This is
guilty. I
still-
didn't admit to anything. My co-defendant, I thought he wasn't telling at this time. And most people, they don't. You're innocent. And you should be treated like an innocent person.
It's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
But you're not. You don't get that. So we do the bail hearing. They issue on me. We go to the to the prelim. That John was crazy because it's like you don't need that much for them to hold it over for court. So this is another place where you see the racism. You know what I mean? Like the magistrate is already with the mindset, oh, the nigga coming in here, we going to trial. Right. You know what I'm saying? Even if you coming up, the story is confusing because, you know, in prelim, it ain't trial, but you try and fight it like it's trial. Once they bring somebody on there to say, yeah, he said he did X, Y, Z. Now I'm trying to bring somebody in and say, nah. And then the judge is like, no, this not trial. This not trial. Then you can't start that chain of events happening.
But use it to the advantage of the prosecution.
Exactly.
But don't allow the defendant.
Exactly. Because they keep saying, this is just the prelim. This is just the prelim. But why are you letting him put people on so I can go over trial? If I can prove to you right now that this shouldn't go to trial. Right. And it's still, and it's not reasonable doubt at the prelim. Right. It's I can't remember what the wording is. But it's something less than reasonable doubt, you know. I can't think of what it is, and that's something else the judge keeps saying as he's letting the prosecutor just roll people out and say whatever they want, and every time you try to challenge it, it's something different. So that was very emotional for me when I went through the prelim because my folks, everybody in there crying, I'm in there crying, and I always remember my older sister was like, they asked, you know, the judge, can we? And at the time, I had a paid attorney because my folks got a little bit of money up because that's another big thing, like. It costs money.
So this was not no public defender. This was
at the prelim.
At the prelim.
But my folks couldn't afford to pay him the rest of the money, and he wasn't going for no payment plans, no nothing. My mom and them tried, but that's another thing about them understanding that we are poor folks, and you're not gonna be able to defend yourself. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? And then beyond having the money, we don't have the education. We don't understand the law.
Right.
And those words like mens rea and prelim and forma pauperis and all of that stuff, that's gibberish to us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So your family, as much as they want to help, a lot of times they can't because they don't have the money. And then sometimes when they had the money, they don't have the education, so they get fleeced by the lawyers.
Right.
Because that's another big thing. When you have a lawyer for crimes like mine coming to me and guys who got homicides and saying, yo, if you give me 100,000, we gonna beat this homicide. Now, how do you know that? Because it's 3 other drug cases that you selling up the river. So you can go to that prosecutor about that murder case and say, damn, remember when, you know what I mean? I served them Jones up. You got easy convictions. They all came and pled. Because this is what really goes on at lunch between DAs and judges. And this is another part of that racism. It happens with white folks, but most of the people you see coming through the criminal courts look like me. And now they look like you at an alarming rate. Because it's like we done locked all the men up, so now we working on the women. And if you look that up, and if y'all get an opportunity, that's just something, you know, food for thought, is the fastest growing prison population now is black women, when it was black men at one time.
They are. Well, we already know the black women is under attack.
Yes.
But I want to try to, because, you know, Two always let us go over.
My bad, Two.
He It's definitely got to be a part 2 to
Yeah, it definitely got to be a part 2.
Because we only got as far as prelim.
Right.
So we got, you know, the childhood
my John
life,
is crazy.
and then we got prelim. So we got to have another show.
Yes, we can
where
do
we
it.
talk about the incarceration and then reentry.
The actual trial
so we did the first 2, and then we got to do the second 2. But
I can give you some more trial. I can give you some more trial.
He's going to have to do that right away because I don't know when this is due. But we can do the second.
All right, so I'm gonna speed it up just a little bit too. I really appreciate this. Is very important. I so appreciate you thinking of me, or your mom thinking of me, or all y'all thinking of me at the same time. Yeah,
it was her.
All right, okay. That feels even better. Like on some real shit. That you actually thought about me. So we go to trial. The prelim, basically, for me, I felt like I lost the prelim like it was trial. I went through a whole emotional thing because of my family, and my sister came in the room and said, listen, this is my sister Didi, listen, I don't know what happened out there. All I know is y'all was in the streets. And you could have ended up the same way. This could have been, the roles could have been reversed. But where we at? So you're going to have to stand up on this. Not that I was going to tell or anything. She just didn't want me in there crying and all that. Like, listen, you was in the streets. This is what it is. We rocking with you. You can have emotions, but we ain't, the breakdown, John, and all that, we ain't doing that. You know what I'm saying? And this is my sister. Again, I just tell y'all that because of what I said earlier, you know, how she was rocking with me. So we go to trial. Now, mind you, it took me 2 years to go to trial. I sat down in the county for 2 years. They kept continuing it, and that's something else that they do because we don't know no better. We don't know the law. We don't have paid attorneys, and the PE is kind of going with whatever the judge and the DA say, to be honest. They're not fighting too hard for you. And I'm just being honest. Again, I know it's a lot of DAs, public defenders say, we don't have the research, this, that, and the third. I seen you dudes fall asleep at trial. That's not unusual. I seen you could tell when a cat come in with a bad suit and it looked crazy, like the prosecutor dressed to the nine. You mean to tell me you couldn't iron your suit? That's little stuff, but it shows the judge that it's like, okay, this guy, you know what I mean? He ain't really, he got a bunch, the bumbling public defender is a real character, to be honest with you. And then you have the ultra nice guy who don't do no fighting for you. He just kind of agree with everything and rock with, like, my attorney was like, listen, all your mitigating circumstances, it's no way that they're going to give you the max. You could take it to trial, this, that, and the third. And this is misinformation that I can never argue about. You know, I could put ineffective assistance at trial, but that's one of the hardest issues to get your relief back on. Because it's like he had a strategy, it just failed. No, it didn't. He didn't have a strategy. He just laid the stuff out and waited for the prosecutor to do what he was going to do and then waiting for me to be spooked and take the deal. So I didn't take the deal. We took it to trial. It took 2 years. My trial was 3 days. January 19th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, and 2000. Yep, 2000. So these 3 days, like people be like, it's the longest 3 days of your life. It really, really did feel like that. It felt like time was stretching every day, like time. And then once it was over, I kind of was like, I didn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like I went through trial and I was hearing certain things like conspiracy to murder when this wasn't a conspiracy. You know what I mean? And y'all can clearly see that this is something that happened right there on the corner. We was arguing. It just spilled out. He wound up getting shot. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no thing that we planned days or hours in ahead. It wasn't premeditated, but they sold it like that. So I'm listening to that. I'm like, nah, that's not what it is. And I'm telling my attorney, like, yo, argue that, fight. You're like, nah, the jury understand. They know, they listening to. I'm like, what? Like, but I don't know what to say. I don't know that I could stand up and object. Like, yo, I object. Now they gonna tell, but because they gotta listen to me. If I stood up and said, but I learned that stuff after the fact, right. Which again, most of us learn after we already been done dirty. And then what Bill Clinton did to make it even better is like, you only get a year to fight. After, from the time you convicted, you get a year. You gotta start fighting immediately. But most of us, when we start fighting, again, we don't have appeal money and we don't understand the law. You telling a dude with no money and 8th grade education to understand the law in a year to fight his appeals. And the appeal would be hard. It's harder because you don't get to do the acting job in front of the judge to kind of sell what you're saying. It's really intellectual. We're having a paper battle where I got all the things lined up and now I gotta find out, read case law, pick it apart, and then they can shoot you down like, nah, the wording was not correct. Like you said, shall, and shall means something completely different. A brother that I know beat a case because they use a word like substantive instead of another word, and he peeped it. This is how deep it is. But he was a dude that was highly educated, and that's how he fought. But most dudes don't have it. Most dudes, they'll give you their case and just be like, fight this John for me. Like, this your freedom. You know what I mean? So the trial was 3 days. My co-defendant, my PD laid down on me. My co-defendant told on me. You know, and that's another thing that's very real. Like I need people to understand, like, telling is at an all-time high, but they've been telling in Philadelphia. I'm just being real. I remember being upstate, and I talked about this yesterday at the Father's Foundation about they brought out an Inquirer article about the cities that tell the most through the federal courts, and Philadelphia was second to Kentucky. So I'm like, damn, like this is just, it's Philadelphia. That's one of the things they say in the feds. We don't talk about that, but we pass that on to these young boys because now they kind of tell out of fuck you-ness or selfishness. Like it ain't even gotta be on no scary stuff. They twisting your words, or it's just like, fuck whoever get there first. Yeah. That's the mentality. Is that selfish mentality. So the trial was 3 days. Then I went through my sentencing. My sentencing was crazy because I was like, damn, I got all the mitigating circumstances that the book say I'm supposed to have to get this. Because when they gave me the 20 to 40, it was like, nah, ain't no way. Ain't no way. And the only thing I remember my brother saying, nah, not my little brother. Like I just remember hearing him say that in the background when he walked out when he gave me my sentence. You know, when I got found guilty, everybody was like, you know how the room be anticipation, and then it's like that's not just on TV. Like that really be that. Like when they be reading the charges, your folks really be like everybody be on the edge of their seat, and then it'd be like guilty. It'd be like and then folks start crying. Like I'm talking about everybody, like even people it's just like it's an anticipation, and it's like guilty, and then you got certain people that might be celebrating. You know, his folks was happy. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the reason why I don't have any ill will towards them. You know what I'm saying? My only thing with that is like we need to be honest about what we doing in the streets. That still holds true. So if you are not against it when they out there, the outcomes can go bad. They can get killed. See, you be cool when they be shooting and they be the tough guy in the neighborhood and they the dude moving around. You be cool with that. But then when he get tagged, it's like he never did nothing to nobody. We got to stop doing that. And that's something that's the reason why my brother got into it with their family, because it was like, this some street shit. Like on some real, this is street shit. They all in the streets. And now this how y'all playing because he took a L. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And y'all would have the same mindset as me and mine if the roles were reversed. That's what my sister was saying. Y'all all was in the street. That's not justifying it. But as us, don't play that game in the courtroom for these people, because that's something else that they want. Because now you got more reason for black people not to rock with each other. This is another one of those situations. You know what I'm saying? And it's a serious situation. So that's a real thing. That whole energy going out the room when somebody is filming, and again, all love to my folks. Like I had people in there every day. And I think that worked against me. I know it did. I know it did, because I seen how folks was looking at me, and they make you play this game where cut your beard off and make sure you wear a suit. None of that stuff don't matter, man. Them people see your black skin. They don't care. The beard probably letting them see more of it that they shouldn't see or something. I don't know. It's like, they look at you funny in there, and you know, like you ever, I don't know. As women, I know y'all know, because y'all get the gaze in a lot of ways, and it's easy to understand and feel. Men is sometimes like, are you looking at me weird or not? Women, because of who y'all are and how y'all look, especially black women, y'all know what it is when the gaze ain't right. Right. You know what I mean? You don't know what it is. It could be weird. It could be creepy. It could be hate. But y'all be knowing what it is instantly. Like, why are you looking at me like that? Us, it's not all. We don't always get it. You know what I'm saying? I know. We don't always get it, but I got this. I got it. I felt it. I knew when I was looking, and it was people like falling asleep. It was this Asian lady, one of the only people of color. That's another thing I learned. Like,
so I'm glad you said that. What did your jury of peers? Because it's supposed to be jury of peers,
right? And again, a lot of our people don't know that. They don't know that they can argue that. You know, you had dudes finding out later trying to fight it. You know what I'm saying? And every once in a blue, they get it because it's a real thing. The jury is supposed to look like a demographic in that area. Now, this is the problem with that, though, where they can get over in some of these predominantly white areas. That is what it is. It's 12 to 2, or, you know what I'm saying? Or 10 to 2, you know? So I didn't have.
This was in Montgomery County.
This was in Montgomery County, yep. And my PD didn't have the wherewithal to even argue that point, that it should be moved, because you can argue that, because this is not a true representation of my peers.
Right.
But I didn't know that. And my PE knew it, and he didn't argue because he didn't want to. He didn't make enough money for that. Like, what are we doing here? You got a trial. So the other thing that I learned is juries, the DA has techniques on how to eliminate black people. And I seen it going on. I didn't know what
During
they were
jury selection
doing. Jury
specifically. So
selection.
that's another way
Yes,
that
they teach it.
seen things were wrong.
They teach
Like,
it. I learned the teaching part later, but I seen things that were being asked of black people about gun ownership and stuff like that that wasn't being asked of other people. Like I seen them disqualify people. Have you ever been robbed before? Stuff like that. You know that these black people coming from these impoverished neighborhoods probably have. And they thinking they being honest, something we always think we can do with white folks and get good results, and it doesn't. But you're being honest, and that's just a reason for them to disqualify. Oh, well, you're not gonna be able to judge this right because you've been robbed before. They like, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've been a victim of some type of gun crime, so you're not gonna be able to judge this. When really it's like, I want you to be on here to judge it properly for me, but they use that against you by saying, you've been robbed before? Yeah, I've been robbed before. Oh, you're probably not going to be able to judge this fairly. So something that's supposed to work in my favor, the DA is doing it so that he could just eliminate the black person because he knows the community that you probably come from, you probably did get robbed before.
Right.
Or definitely somebody you know got robbed before and you felt some type of way about it. So they use it on a reverse tip to get rid of it. And then another thing that I learned is black older women. Now I read this, but it took me back to my trial because I had 2 older black women and they got both of them off. But off of the jury. Because what I found out is older black women, they will not convict. When young black men are sitting there, they will not convict. It's statistically proven. DAs teach it to other DAs. You got to get the older black women off the jury. They will not convict. You feel what I'm saying? And it's a book. It's a book called by a brother named, I think it's Wes Moore. It's either Wes Moore or Charles Blow wrote about this, like in very extensive detail. Because I think Wes Moore was a DA, and he realized he came into his awakening when he was becoming a DA and hearing the things they were saying and how they was teaching him, and he like, this ain't right. And then once he got in the position and seeing that majority of the people that was coming through that these techniques were being used on were black men. You know what I'm saying? So that was what my trial looked at like. Like I started seeing certain things, but I didn't know how to identify them, like where I can explain it to you now until I start reading about stuff after the fact. And that's usually the case. Right.
During that's your time in prison.
And that's usually the case. So the thing that I knew where I got railroaded was, one, my public defender didn't give me proper information of why I should take the deal and I should take the deal. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And then when one of the things they do is they punish you for taking it to trial, for using your rights. They always give you the max. Whenever you take it to trial, they almost always give you the max if you lose.
So after you were found guilty, when did they sentence you?
I got found guilty, like I said, January 20th or 21st. And then I always remember this. I got given 20 to 40 years, April 4th, 2000.
So from January to April.
Yeah, I'm just sitting in the cell, and they put you on like a suicide watch type thing when you get a whole bunch of time. So now they isolating me to just think about this at 20 years old. Like, what are they about to do to you? You've been found guilty of almost all the charges. Now I'm in the law library. This is something else we need to do. Read what charges hold. If you want to be out here doing whatever you're doing, okay, start reading what these charges hold so you can know what you're facing. It might make you make a better decision of whether you want to be out here or not. So I'm losing my mind. I'm delusional. I'm not gonna lie. From January to April, I was delusional because I was like, ain't no way. Like, ain't no way I got found guilty of this. And now I'm trying to figure out how much time they gonna give me. And this joint was crazy. It was crazy reading it like, and you can get a 25 to 50. You can get, and really the max is only 20 to 40, but you can get 20 to 40. And I'm 20. Anything sound like forever at 20. You know what I'm saying? So I go through that process, get found guilty, had all of these mitigating circumstances. None of those things worked for me. They actually were used against me. The judge said it. You're not the person that they're talking. The person sitting here is not the person that committed that crime. So those mitigating circumstances meant nothing. That's another racial thing because
I mean, and look, we like to, listen,
I know.
I just don't like. This is one person here,
right?
This is not. This is a person.
Yeah.
This is the same person. They can separate you in your mind and body, and your they can separate a moment
But what I will say, because I so appreciate too for giving us this time. This is very important. It's very important that this queen in training is getting this information and asking these questions, and her and people in her age group are mulling these issues over because they're still very prevalent, like very prevalent. We have indictment season about to come down in Philadelphia with the murder gangs
Oh
that's out here.
yeah.
So the thing was crazy was that I got the time. I got 20 to 40. He explained that I had a 15 to 30 for aggravated assault, a 15 to 30 for conspiracy to murder, which that was never proven because there wasn't no plan or plot to shoot this young man. It was an argument that turned into shooting. There was no conspiracy, and I knew that, and I kept trying to argue that. I fought that for 15 years, trying to fight that, like getting that conspiracy to murder off of my jacket because it just looked like murder.
Right.
Like people were always asking, like, damn, you got a homicide? And I'm like, nah, I shot the brother, he in a wheelchair, but he didn't die. You know what I mean? And then it's a whole thing about that too that I got into with myself after the fact. But being found guilty, getting that 20 to 40, I didn't believe it. I'm not a delusional guy, but I said, it ain't no way these people gonna get this amount of time out of me. Like, it's no way. This I kept telling myself when I got the time. Like I said, I was kind of I was like, man, ain't no way. I'm gonna figure this out. Something gonna have to give. You know what I mean? But I wound up having to do all the time. So after I got found guilty, like May, I went up to Camp Hill. Camp Hill, you there? No, I went to Greaterford first. It's like a quarantine situation. You there for like 2 weeks. They giving you. You get your number. They ask you, everybody talks about this. They ask you, where do you want your body sent if you die? Or if you get killed, however, and that's just how they say it to you. And it's like, who thinking of this right now? I don't know. What type of question is this? But this is one of those psychological things that's happening. The whole stripping you down in front of a bunch of men, because everywhere you travel, once you in prison, they got to get you naked. They got to search your whole body. Then, you might be around other men, you might not. You're around other men who are COs who got all types of gay jokes and all of this stuff amongst themselves. If they think they can get it off, they're going to try in terms of playing with you in that way just to further degrade you. And then I'm not going to say a lot, but some of our brothers feed in. The brothers who look at them with the, you notice you don't get the same amount of food, or your food comes late, or they make you stand there a little longer because you don't want to participate. You stripping me down. I feel like I'm being raped right now, to be honest. That's how I felt. I felt like I was being violated every time they stripped me. Because it was like, damn, I was just on the street shooting at people and hurting people. If somebody would have came at me like this on the street, it would have been a problem. And now I allowed this system to have that much control where I'm doing it. So I'm going through that in my head. And this is before I was already kind of conscious when I went to jail. But this is before I like really came into knowing who I was. I was feeling that. But I start peeping like all of these routines. And again, once I start reading the 3 outfits, the cot that you know what I mean? The way that the work is situated, this slavery stuff. You know what I mean? And then we find out again, because a lot of us don't know about the 13th Amendment when we get locked up, that slavery never ended. Slavery still can be enacted if you're duly committed of a crime. So now we see why lock everybody up is so important, because we basically putting these people back into slavery. Crack was a way to send everybody to jail and put black people back into slavery, which it actually did work. It does work like that. When you read it, it's in our Constitution. Once you get locked up, slavery is back enacted. So these COs and POs and all of these people that's around, they're overseers. They're masters dealing with their cattle. Instead of us being in the field, we in a factory. Instead of us picking cotton, we making furniture. We're making clothes. We making license plates. Like, we making food. We making stuff to keep us in prison. We making the jackets that we wear in prison. We making the clothes. And it's a job that you get paid a little bit more money to make the clothes and stuff. And then you get three outfits a year. You know what I'm saying? Now, we find ways to finagle it and all that, but then they always want to give you like tight stuff, super fit. Now, the young boys now, they probably wouldn't care, but when we was coming through, it was like baggy, everything. So it's like, they knew that. So a cat like me, they really trying to give me like some skin. Like, I got to sit there and argue and go to the lieutenant and all that. Like, dog, look at these pants, bro. I can't fit these, John. But these is different ways, low intensity warfare, like I told you, where they just needle at you. And one of the things that I learned early on, that jail wasn't this physical place that it was in the 70s and 80s, where it was like violence was everybody was what they wanted to enact on people. What they start doing when I came in is playing with your mind. Like I said, seeing they start enacting mental illness in a lot of brothers who were already teetering because of what their lifestyles was beforehand. And they were needling at you just enough to make you snap.
Breaking.
Just to make you wild out against another inmate, which is another way to call you a nigga. And you could hear how they say it, because the guards who dealt with us with some level of respect or care, if you even want to call it that, they were called inmate lovers. Like, you an inmate lover. You always laughing with the inmates. You always joke. You always, doing your job, basically. You know what I'm saying? Because what can you really give me? You know what I'm saying? But what I'm supposed to get policy-wise. Right. So that's another way that racism was prevalent. Like, it's very prevalent. It's easy to see when you walk in and talking and seeing how these people move and what they think. Mm-hmm. When you hear about religion, when you hear about so many people being conservatives, Christian conservatives, military patriots. When I hear these words, I think, and people are not gonna like this, but I think of racist. Because usually when I see your policies that you like, and the people that, when you're patriot, Christian, Republican, it's an easy jaunt for me. I pretty much know how you feel about black folk. You can tell me anything you want to tell me, but the policies that these people roll out, you could see but then I even learned about liberals too, with the whole wanting to be parents. You got a whole group of white people that think, we don't want to hurt you. We just need to take care of you because you don't know how to do it yourself. Yeah. And you get a lot of that in prison. And then another thing that that cracks you is, and I battle with this now a lot. People constantly questioning you, yo. They think nobody believes nothing you say. Nothing. So when you talking to other convicts, it's like, is he trying to finesse me to get something? So you're not being believed in those conversations unless you really, really get close with somebody and y'all brothers, like me and your pop. Like, we could sit and talk. And at first it was that, like, and then after a while it was like, no, boy, good dude. That's my man. And then it turned into that. But most cats think you want angles. Most dudes you deal with, it's a mental game going on. But then when you talk to the guards, they believe nothing you say. But then when you talk to your folks on the phone, they think everything you saying is jail shit. So where do you land when nobody you talking to believes what's coming out your mouth? That fucks with you. You know what I mean? It's just like that. And it's still like, when people question me now, I instantly get upset. Like, what do I gotta lie to you for? But I know that's a trauma response from not being believed for so long for different reasons.
Right.
I know why my people didn't believe from the outside.
Right.
Because, like, we don't know what's going on with you in there. And we want to believe, but we don't know. And then we all come from the street. So it's kind of like, he trying to get over on me. And then the guards don't believe you because you a nigga. Yeah. Not because you a convict, because you a nigga. You niggas is shifty. Y'all sneaky. You know what I'm saying? This is y'all supposed to, even though they the sneakiest, deceptive people on the planet, but this is how they come at you. So that was one of those things where with prison was like, what is going on? Like, I start repeating myself. I tell your mom about that. I tell people about this all the time. Like, I started repeating myself talking because I'm like, do you understand what I'm saying? Because I start feeling like it's me. Maybe I'm not articulating myself good enough for them to understand that I'm not lying to you about this. This is just a regular conversation. I'm just asking you for something, or I'm just telling you something about myself. And those things is met with whatever. Like, becoming African, because that's something, identity-wise, I became African. And the reason why that's a big part of me being incarcerated is because I kept questioning myself, because I wasn't, as I learned that I was kind of different from a lot of my brothers. Right. It even made me understand more, like, or made me want to know more how you end up here. Right. You know what I mean? And then going back to before prison, one of my biggest issues, and so many of us, is because of how we've been treated as African folk. When we are presented with opportunities, a lot of times we don't know how to take advantage of them. You know what I mean? And that's a reason, right? And that's a reason for people to be like, see, they don't want nothing. But I just didn't know how to take advantage of it. Right. Going to school, like, I made it to college, but I didn't know how to take advantage of it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have that school. And so people were like, you was in school, what you mean? Nobody gave me a blueprint.
Yeah, and then not only that, it was like, come on, it was it's all a part of the systems that were put in place to derail us
Mm-hmm.
from the American dream into, school to jail pipeline.
Yes.
So many other things, but
And I started reading about all of those things in prison, and just so for me, I love to tell people I'm an autodidact. You know what I'm saying, and that's really big for me because me being self-taught, who I am, how I'm supposed to conduct myself, and I had a lot of those qualities already. I just didn't know how to put them in their proper place. You know what I'm saying? I knew what loyalty was, but I didn't know loyalty could be misplaced. That's how I got told on. Because I seen my co-defendant do things prior to that I didn't agree with, but it was like, right or wrong, it's my man. And some things you could say something to him about, some things you just gotta say, fuck it. But really, a man that's loyal asks a lot of questions. Because you can't waste that love. You can't waste that responsibility. You can't waste that protection that's about to come with whatever you tell this person.
Right.
You know what I mean? But because a man knows that, he's going to ask more questions. That's not doubt. He's in those questions. It's not no doubt that he going to rock for you. But he need to know because there's a lot of loss that comes from a man being lost, an actual man. Because every man, every guy my age is not all men, or you know what I'm saying.
Man, that's a whole
nother joint. But
a whole nother,
I'm just saying. But my mom and them taught me loyalty.
Right.
My mom and them taught me sensitivity. My mom and my sister taught me how to care, why intelligence is important, why reading is important. These are the people in my family, the women in my family taught me this. I just didn't know how to utilize it at first. You know what I mean? And once I start gaining identity, now I knew that thing about being married, that wasn't a problem. This is what a man probably should, what his marriage is going to look like is determined by him and his wife. But being married is not a problem. That's not something a man should run from. That's not something a man should be like, oh, it's the clinks and all that good dumb stuff that you seen on TV. Yeah. That's a part of being a man and building and creating.
Taking care of a family.
Right. So I started reading books, a lot of books. Haki Madhubuti, Naeem Akbar, Kwanzaa Kunjufu, Marimba Ani, Ida B. Wells, Sheikh Auntie Diop, Dr. Ben, Malcolm X. I read books on Paul Cuff, Martin Delaney, David Walker, Alice Cooper, Fannie Lou Hamer, Elaine Brown, Angela Davis. Like I didn't. It got to a point like I need to really understand how these people played me like this. That's what it turned into. You know what I mean? Like how? That was my big question. It wasn't a woe is me. It wasn't a I'm sick. Yeah, I didn't want to be there like nobody else. I went through all of that, but the thing that made me hungry to really, really read more and more and more, because I'm like, damn, how they get you here? Like you were supposed to make it. Right. I was probably the biggest dude in my neighborhood, the biggest dude in my family. I was athletic, I was smart, I was good looking. Everything that that's supposed to make it, I was supposed to make it. So how did these people get me? And at 20. Not at 18, not at 17. I did go to placement, but placement was like a game for me as a teenager. Right. It was kind of like a stupid rites of passage. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm selling drugs, and it's like, catch me if you can. I'm a juvenile. You know what I mean? That's how you be. Yeah. That's how they teach you, especially because that's one thing about the law that we're taught as juveniles, that you can't get trial as an adult. Y'all ain't tell us no other legal stuff, but you can get locked up for this and we can get you back out. You know what I'm saying? Because you're a teenager. So that make you start being even more brazen. Like, man, I'm going to call my OG and he going to come get me. Yeah, I'll take all the coke. Man, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Then I go to placement. It wasn't nothing. It was like I went to the mills. So I was already athletic, like sports. So that was perfect for me. I knew I was going to still get a high school diploma and all that. I knew nothing wasn't going to change. For real, I just didn't want to be there because it was what it was. Right. And they let you go home on the weekend. But the other thing about that's very important about mock incarceration, it trains you to be incarcerated. It gets you prepared for the regiment of incarceration. Yep. You know, being told when to take a shower, when to go to the bathroom, walking in line, eating chow at a certain time, having bells dictate when you go places, people on the loudspeaker, we move here, we move there, it's time for this, it's time for that. You know what I mean? Like, the juvenile placement gets you prepared so you can be a little more comfortable in how you about to live. And then some dudes be in placement from 9 up and 2, 10 up and 2, 11 up and 2. They go to the state. You know what I mean? So like it's so many levels of this thing. Like I had another really important thing about me being incarcerated was me becoming a tutor, because it went back to slavery where first they made it like hard to become a tutor because they knew so many dudes didn't already had a GED. You know what I'm saying? They knew so many dudes couldn't read at a certain level. They wasn't gonna pass certain tests. So when I did that, it's like, all right, now being a tutor, because I made that decision, and I tell everybody that because another one of those epiphanies or learning things was, I'm not painting the jail. I'm not fixing the cameras in the jail. I'm not doing no job that's helped maintain the place that's oppressing me. I'm not doing that. So what I'm gonna do is for the men, education.
Right.
I'm good at it. I know what you know what I mean? I'm already doing it kind of when dudes ask me 1,000 questions. So now I'm a tutor. But what it did was it made the guards not like me even more. Oh, and it was one particular guard. Yeah, it was one particular guard. And there's two things that he hated. One, he hated that we were coming from the yard and they gotta lock everybody down. Like once you come in the yard, everybody gotta go to their cell. We gotta lock everybody down. Then you start letting dudes come out one at a time for their showers that they signed up for. One at a time for their phone calls that they signed up for. And then after a while, it's count time, then we go eat. But I could come in, and after the guard walk around the whole block, locking everybody up, then I go to the bar and be like, yo, open 17 cell, open 16 cell, open 5 cell. So it's like, how the fuck do this guy get to come out here and tell us to open the doors that he want us to open? So they hated it. They hate. And not only am I telling you to do this, but now I'm about to educate this boy. Now we going to sit out here and read. So they would get mad. Lawson, you ain't teaching nothing. Let me see the books. All right, here you go. You want me to explain it to you? Because you're dumb for real.
So you had the job as a teacher.
Yeah.
And was able to go to them and say, I need to pull these people out.
Yep.
We got school time.
We got school time. And they hated it. So it was this one guard who hated it more than any. He hated it so much that the other guards was like, damn, you putting too much energy into this shit. So what happened was, the one guard that was working on a block, I already knew what the guard, his name was Jackson. I already knew what he was trying to do. And the guard was so like, this is kind of stupid. Like, you taking it too far. But he was a boy named OD. He was about to go on vacation. And he came to me and was like, Lawson, watch yourself, man, because Jackson is really trying to send you to the hole. Like, he hate the fact, he's something about you he don't like. And I'm like, I know what he hate. I know what he don't like. He don't like that I'm out here educating people.
Right.
He don't like that. They don't want you to be smarter because those guards will tell you that you good job security. When dudes would come back, they would laugh and joke with them. You know, damn, you good job security. And the reason why that's important, because over 20 years that I did in prison, I seen 3 I tell people this all the time because it speaks to the loss that we have and what we're giving to somebody else through this slavery that's going on. Mm-hmm. So these areas are old mining areas, coal mining, old factory areas that the industry done left the people. They mainly just turned into drug addicts for real, meth and dope. So they had to create a new factory for these people to employ them. So they put prisons out there. And what these prisons would do is, one, it creates some sustainability in this place to give people jobs. So now people and they lowered the criteria, this is funny, to the eighth grade. Like, you didn't necessarily even have to have a GED or a diploma. Like, look it up.
Oh, to work
in the prison, right? So, and then the military dudes would get like a 4-year cutoff for their pension. So you had a whole bunch of military dudes because they understood the regiment of jail because it's very similar to the military. So what they would do is, you are being taken from most of the people in PA that are in these 32 prisons that started off as 8 and it's 32 now. Most of those people come from Philadelphia because that's where most of the black people live at in this state. When you look it up, majority of the black people, Philadelphia, majority black state is about 47% of this city is black. Mm-hmm. And then you have folks of color and then you have white. So, and it goes up to like 60% if you're talking about folks of color. So now you take that pool and send them to these prisons in Montgomery County, in Rockview, and Huntington, Smithfield, Phoenixville, Greene County, Somerset, Albion, and you can go on and on. All white counties that were dying. And these prisons created industry. So you would build hotels around them, stores around them, a whole industry around the prison because people got to come see the people who work there is going to these places and stuff. So now the reason why we good job security because 3 generations is working in this factory called the prison. You would have the grandfather, the father, and the son all working in the prison, training each other, and multiples of it. That wasn't unusual for 5, 6 people in a family to be working in the prison. So you getting a direct correlation of who you're feeding, while
like
your
working in the coal mines or something.
right,
like,
and while your family in turn has lost potential and productivity, however it was, drug money, a bull crap job, whatever, you're gone. That presence is gone. That role is gone. Anything that would come with you being there is gone. And now it's benefiting somebody else. And then the other part of prison that makes it so crazy is you're not being counted on your census where you're from. So that means the amount of federal dollars that go to that area is smaller because you have a whole group of people that are not there anymore. Why? Because they're in prison. But what's happening is they're being counted on the census where they're at.
So now they're getting all this money.
And that money doesn't have to be spread across those dudes. Now, they get the same per body money, but it don't have to be spread across these dudes in prison. But the even more diabolical thing is the gerrymandering that happens because now that your population went up 5,000 people, that might have put you over the mark to have more than one representative in that part now. So not only are you getting more federal dollars for those black bodies, but you get more political power for that black body because now they can have more than one representative because of the number of people. But this representative and this money doesn't have to take care of those extra people.
No.
It's just spread across the people that's already there. You feel what I'm saying? So not only are they getting jobs, but they're getting more federal dollars and they're getting more political representation in the state. And what do you think they're doing with the political representation? You got industries that's giving these people money to keep pushing for prisons because they making money off the prison. So again, this is the slavery thing happening right in front of your face and you don't know. And you got people like the Disney World, investing in prisons.
And not only that, it's also, I mean, I know and this is all, completely off of the prison topic, and you is really...
Yeah, we out.
Toucan, you should have walked ahead and cut him down. But just to, throw in there a little bit too, I know we trying to teach financial literacy in the stock market and stuff like that, but be mindful of these stocks that y'all investing in.
Yes.
Because these stocks are funding prisons.
Yes, they are.
Pay attention to the
please.
Bottom lines because you see your stock going up and you're like, yeah, your uncle, your brothers, your sons, and everybody is in the prisons that this money that you making, these stock markets that you making this money.
And it's crazy because once that information was starting to get more and more well known, that's another thing that caused rifts in our community because you had people that would argue because they believe we just commit crime because we want to commit crime. We just bad. And you have black people who believe this. They like, well, shit, I would invest in a prison too. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. But it's like, y'all want to keep going to jail. That's how people talk. So it's like, y'all want to keep going to jail. And I'm like, damn, if y'all could just read some of these books. That was like a big thing for me. Like, read Michelle Alexander, New Jim Crow. Like, it's for me, I read every book that she got in her bibliography before her book came out. So that's why I was so hyped when I read the book. Like, damn, she read Black Code. I read Black Code. She put the joint about the convict lease system in. I read that. Like, she put a lot. She put like bell hooks to somebody else that people, especially my sister, should read extensively. I read a lot of bell hooks while I was incarcerated, and she is one of the preeminent scholars, or was, because she passed away. She was one of the preeminent scholars and one of the most prolific writers that we ever seen in American history, in world history. Read her books, and these books they're dense, but they're readable. You know what I'm saying? So she had one book that breaks down imagery, like.
And I think, bro, you have like a lot of good background in literature, like books that can open minds and give insight to a lot of the things that we are struggling with and dealing with. So I think it may be worthwhile for us to, like use the show to
Yeah, a
break,
lot of people been
look
saying
at the
that.
book. Let's break this
Right,
book apart.
because
Let's
one of
have
the
a
books I want to
conversation
read
about.
again, and she wrote, and it's because, and this is a little off topic, but it's still a thing coming from my trauma in prison. Is like when I deal with my daughter mom. Like sometimes, like when she question me, I just be like, I lose it, cause I be like, damn, I didn't. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. Why are you questioning me? And that comes from a lot of places. I'm not saying that it's always like negative where she trying to be, but it's like I don't really know how to take that. Like,
right.
why are you questioning me? You know what I mean? When
Right.
you see what I do. Like you know what I mean? I ain't tell you to overblow it, but
Right.
I'm just like, damn, you see what I do? Why? You know what I mean? And then
So what's the book?
The book is All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Okay.
Read All About Love by Bell Hooks, man, because a lot of people would say love, 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 and love might be this thing, might be. Hear what I'm saying? Might be like religion. It's your personal relationship with what love is to you.
It is.
Like, what is love to you? What constitutes somebody loving you and you being loved? That's a question that I think we constantly should be asking ourselves. And I try to do it a lot. Like, what do a person need to do or say or be present to show that they love me? And what do I do to show my love to people? And is it being received? Right.
Between people. And it's ironic because you started off with love.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We started this show
Ain't no
off
doubt.
with
Ain't
you
no-
having love as a childhood.
Yes.
This is the love bull.
Yes, I am.
And we gonna end this
We're
with
going to
love.
end this too, man. That's
We gonna
love.
end this with
That
love
you just let this
because
joint go
I'm telling
on
y'all
like
right
this.
now,
I appreciate you.
this guy right here. Oh man. But listen, bro. Like,
We gotta come back. What you
we
doing
gotta
next
come
week?
back. Look, she.
You
Look,
can come
we
back
gotta
and we
come
can finish
back.
talking about
But you
the
have
after.
your story
the after
is
stuff.
so inspiring, and just to be able to have a young black
Yes.
woman, my child, be in a position who's educating herself and choosing this route
Mm-hmm.
as a topic to address in her class, it just lets me know that we're doing something right.
Right.
You
This
know,
platform,
we're doing
like-
something right, like having this platform for her to be able to do
Yes.
this, for you to be able to share your
Yes.
story in an informative and educational way to share with other young black children,
Mm-hmm.
man, woman, no matter what, to be able to understand the systems that are in place right now. That is part of the reason that's destroying black families. This is where we at with it. This is PSA. This is
I love
who we
it
are.
because this is very much a jail creation. You know what I'm saying?
It
Like this whole
It is.
It is very much a creation
It is.
from
It
I
really is.
know your mom because of your brother. I mean your dad, somebody that I met in prison, and this is my folks, and he told me a lot about y'all. We are guarded at first. You don't talk. So you talk about your woman a little bit. You don't necessarily talk about your kids. Or you talk about your kids a little bit. You don't really talk about your woman. But then once you start getting, then you don't want to show nobody your pictures. And then dudes got to be cool with you to see the pictures, and then get to see the family. And it's like that's when you know a dude rock with you. When that process is happening, like for the longest y'all talking, nobody see no pictures. Then you talk about certain people so much, it's like I gotta show my man the picture. So you show him the picture, and then but that's a badge of honor because it's like, damn, he showed me his pictures, and this is something that we hold close. I can't, because you might be weird.
Right.
You might be scheming on my lady. You might be looking at my children weird. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what your gaze is. Yeah. So when cats get to that point, now some dudes be all over it, but most dudes is like it's a process to that. So me and him becoming brothers through arguments, through basketball, through me having to like tell him about our history and our issues, and he like, nah, rude, then he go look at the news and something happened, then he come out, he like, this happened, you said this, that, and then some things he would agree and disagree, and we would go back and forth, and that's how we built our relationship. Plus we both basketball junkies. But the biggest thing for me with your pop was coming home, and it was like, you can come on in and meet my family. You know what I'm saying? And not only can you meet my family, but I'm going to be man enough to be like, all this stuff that I be telling y'all, this black stuff, this is the boy who helped me formulate those opinions, and we debated about things, and I came to my understanding about these things, what helps me be the man I am. We ain't perfect. We've tried to fix this shit as we go. because we starting from a deficit. You know, all of us, not just black men. I just feel like the first attack was on us, but we the attack was the same. The first attack was on the men, but the attack to our women, because just like, and I gotta be graphic like this before we leave, because I always want us to understand how detrimental and how serious these things are, is because the same way they tarred and feathered black men and tied their limbs to horses and made the horse pull them apart, they hung our women up by their feet from trees and cut the babies out their stomach and stomped on them. So when we go through this struggle Olympics about who, and I hate it, I don't like it, because they got us at this state when we just like this, men this, women this, and we usually say nigga and bitch. That's what we usually say. But my thing when I say that graphicness is what they did to both of us was equally. It was that's two different things. Hanging from a tree, being pulled apart by like, you know what I'm saying? But it's both are horrific, and it has the same impact, and they found a way to do it through policy, with money, with imagery, to still destroy you and have you at odds with the people that love you the most, that you're supposed to be linking up. Like my sister always say, the whole quest is destroy the black family. Like if you don't have a black family, you have nothing else. Because if the black family not working, that means our interpersonal relationships are broken. Men and women don't get along.
Yep.
Black men and black women don't trust each other. So how are we going to have a family? And if we do have a family, how is it going to be a family that can actually build and create and grow? So I think you coming back next week?
Yes.
And we gonna finish the interview. I really, really, really appreciate it.
And you see what two questions got?
I told all these people that I was being interviewed.
When I read her questions, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is going to be long."
The only thing I was trying to make sure that I didn't do, and I didn't do it, is I didn't go off on any tangents. I didn't take any joints left.
Really
I just want to be very detailed about my experience.
Your experience and your history. And the one thing that I want to make sure we do get to, she has some questions later on about how can, children her age or, kids in school or whatever help with reform. So, and she'll get into that, a little later, but I just want to make sure this is all coming full circle. This is definitely PSA.
Philly service announcement.
The love, support, and grace.
It's real. It's real too.
This is Takeover Tuesday, but this Tuesday was Rue Takeover. Okay.
Yo, nah, we can you tell them who you are again? That's how we gonna go out. Tell them who you are, and we gonna slide out in that. And she'll be back next week.
Share again.
Okay, my name is Tasia, and I was here to learn more for my social justice project on racism and criminal justice reform.
And
heard it.
That's what we doing out here.
That's what we doing out here. This is what we raising out here.